Hello, folks. This is Dave Lloyd. I'm talking to you from Costa Rica, actually, and I'm excited to talk to you today. Actually, I really am. Today, I wanted to just bring a message of the day out. I'm not going to bring a message every day, so I don't want to confuse you there because sometimes I'm going to be doing other things. But this is something that I've been wanting to do and wanting to put out learnings and things that you can benefit from out here on the front blog, and that you can use if you decide to, to build your list and refer people. You can actually refer people to anything on the front blog, and it'll track to your affiliate ID at Empower Network if you just add $ID equals your username. Now, this isn't going to be edited all professional and everything because it's just got my camera equipment out and some microphones and things, so I'm just going to upload it straight as it is. What I want to talk to you about, though, today specifically, is I want to talk to you about the importance of clarity in your life and clarity in your business. A lot of people talk about setting goals, and I think that sometimes the advice that people give on setting goals isn't well placed. In fact, if you guys really want to hear some really good goal setting advice, go through module 1 in the 15K formula, and it's important for you, if you want anything, to be very clear on what it is that you want. There's a lot of reasons for that, and actually in my next message, whenever it is, I'm going to go into some more. I want to actually read something from a book that I'm reading. It's a secret book. I'm not going to tell you the name. You can guess if you're going to guess the name. I'd be really interested if any of you could get it, but it's just a interesting statement, and I talk about this all the time, and this is one of the places that I've heard this mysterious book that I'm reading now. Let me read this to you. It's through our senses that we obtain raw information that our brain refines into our perceptions. The word refine here is key because the brain acts as a reducing valve. Well, unconsciously, we can process something in the order of 2 million bits of information from our senses per second. Research by George A. Miller demonstrates that consciously, we can be aware of only 7 plus or minus 2 bits of information. This just means a number between 5 and 9. Okay, so once again, let me repeat that. 2 million bits of information unconsciously. Research by George A. Miller demonstrates that consciously we can only be aware of 5 to 9 chunks of information, and our mind acts as a reducing valve. Now, 10 is a real stretch. 5 is kind of more normal. Now, there's a quote in here that by George Miller I want to read to you. It says, "There seems to be some limitations built into us either by learning or by the design of our nervous systems, a limit that keeps our channel capacities in this general range." Now, what I've noticed, and once again, a top secret book, what I've noticed is that people tend to focus on what they don't want. And the reason they're focusing on it isn't because they want to focus on it. It's because your unconscious is focusing on it because you're not giving it anything to focus on, right? There's a really important distinction that I want you to be aware of, and that is whatever you're paying attention to, the sound of my voice, the pen that I'm holding in my hand, the microphone that's sitting here, the window in the background with the shutters, the wind blowing, the feeling on your face, on the bottom of your toes. Your conscious mind can direct itself all over the place. And all the information that's going on in the background is handled by your unconscious, right? Now, I want to tell a story to you really quick. See this watch here? I've talked about it before, and I just think it's hilarious to wear a gold watch with the tank top. This Rolex, it cost me $39,000. That was including taxes. I think the actual cost of it was $36,000. I remember walking into the gold watch store, and I was talking to Lawrence Tam. Actually, I do have a cell phone. Nobody has the number, but I call Lawrence and a couple other people from time to time. I got one of these because I like playing on the iPhone, and Dave Sharp made me buy it because he's like, dude, I could never get a hold of you, Dave. And so Dave Sharp has it, my wife has it, like 3 other people have my secret phone number. I even hide the number from Lawrence when I call. Now, I was talking to Lawrence on the phone about a problem that he was having as I was walking into the gold watch store, and I was talking to him about how your conscious mind can do one thing and your unconscious is doing an entirely different thing in the background. I don't know if you've ever had an experience where you've wanted to go in one direction in your life and you've just been compelled to go in another. And I don't know if you've ever had something happen. Some of you have been addicted to drugs or something like that, where you say, I'm not going to pick up the bottle, and you just reach for it anyways. And obviously Dave Sharp's an expert in things like that. It's why some people in those situations need help and stuff. Well, your unconscious is doing everything in the background that you're not doing consciously, which is most of everything. So I'm walking in here and I'm talking to Lawrence, and I walk into the gold watch store without a gold watch and without any jewelry on, and I think I looked homeless and smelled bad. And I walk in and I say, I want to see all the gold watches in the store, because I had decided about, 8 years earlier that I wanted a gold watch. When I was in this Amway meeting late at night, I believe it was 2 in the morning. At 2 in the morning, I was talking to this guy, and I said, that is a gigantic watch that you're holding. And he says, do you want to see it? And I said, yeah. And he took it off, and he put it in my hand. And I felt this gold watch in my hand, and my hand was like this. I don't know if you've ever felt a gold watch, but I felt this in my hand, and I looked at it, and I held it up to my ear, and I heard the clock ticking like this as this man was telling me a story about how he had focused his mind on one thing and one thing alone for about 5 years, and that's how he was able to buy all the things in his life that he wanted. Well, what happens is you're looking at the watch and paying attention to whatever it is you're paying attention to around you, is that whatever it is that you're not clear about, your unconscious mind is just going to go wherever it wants, right? And most of your life is controlled by your unconscious. If you don't know what you want in a certain area of your life, that area of your life is just going to go crazy, and wherever you're programmed to go, wherever society's told you to go, wherever you've habitually gone in the past, you're going to go. So in the 15K formula in Module 1, I go through a formula for getting clear. And I want to go over something additional to that now with you. And it's something that I've just picked up on recently. And it's a concept called chunking. Okay, now this is something I heard a long time ago, and I didn't really understand what it meant. And after understanding what it meant, it's one of the most useful things that I've ever learned. Chunking is the process of, you could do it linguistically, you could do it through images, you could do it through things that you're seeing or hearing. It's the process of going towards something more abstract or something more specific, right? For example, this is a pen. You could ask a question, what is a pen an example of? And then you could say it is an example of something that you use to write. That would be chunking up, right? If you chunk up on that, you say, what are some other examples of things you can use to write? You might come to a keyboard, right? Which is essentially the same as a pen, because it's something that you can write with. That would be chunking down. But you could go an example of something you can use to write. And then you could say, well, what's that an example of? And then you could go from, this is something that you use to write, to something more grand, more abstract, which would be, this is an example of communication. Now, if you take communication, you could chunk down and you could say, what are some ways that we can communicate? And you could say, we could write. And then you could chunk back down to pen. You could also say, you can speak things. And then you could chunk to the radio. You could chunk to CDs. You could chunk to verbal communication. You could say, you can communicate through pictures. And you could chunk to TV. You could chunk to drawing. You could chunk to artwork, right? And you could go back up and you could say, what is communication an example of? And then you could come up with all kinds of answers in chunking up from communication. What is it an example of? Maybe it's an example of connection. Well, what are some other ways we can connect, right? And then you could chunk down. You could also chunk up. You could say, what's an example of connection? What's that an example of? And then you could chunk up and you could say, it's an example of the inner workings of the universe. It's an example of the universe, right? You could chunk up to oneness. You could chunk to all kinds of things. Well, in goal setting, you could do the same thing. And it's a really useful thing on your goals to chunk up, right? And we call this finding your why. Now, this is the same as like, I want a pen or I want a gold watch. Well, I would ask, when you have the gold watch, what will that give you that you don't have now? That would be an example of chunking up. And you might say, it'll give me a proof and a validation that I can do anything I set my mind to. And I say, when you have that, what will that give you that you don't have now, right? That's chunking up on that. And you might say, well, it'll show me that I can succeed. You say, when you can succeed the way that you want and you're succeeding the way that you want now, what will that give you that you don't have now. And that will be chunking up again. And eventually you're going to hit a place of silence, right? Now, most people in their life, they're very uncomfortable with silence in their mind. I actually just read a book by Eckhart Tolle called The Power of Now. It's not what I'm quoting from. And he talks about how people are very uncomfortable generally with silence. They're uncomfortable with going to that place inside. That's right. Where everything stops. When you go to that place inside, the unconscious resources are going to start coming out, right? The unconscious reasons. Now, I'll give you an example of this. We were in a room at one of our leadership trainings that some of you guys are going to have access to here in the future. And in this leadership training, we had Nicole Cooper in the room. We said, "What do you want?" And she said, "I want to make $1.2 million a year." It was like she answered like that. She knew like that. Most people, they just drop it there. Well, there's no problem with a goal like that. But what's that goal an example of? We need to chunk up on that goal, because if you don't chunk up on your goals, then you're not going to have your real unconscious motivation to achieve your goals. You might decide to buy, you might get in, you might get all in, you might hear this video and just decide to buy on the spot. You might decide to put your email into a form because you have a goal of learning what's on the next page. You might decide to leave a comment on this video because you want to express your feelings. You might decide that you're going to get an Empower Network and just stick with it. You can make decisions, right? And you also want motivation, real internal drive. Now that's going to come from your unconscious, because your conscious mind can do all sorts of magical things. It can focus your energy in a direction. It can make decisions, right? You can decide in your conscious mind that you're going to get an Empower Network, but how you're really going to succeed when you decide to get in is your unconscious taking control, right? You can make a decision on a buy now page to buy a blogging system, and it's your motivation that comes from your unconscious that it's going to make you blog every single day. You want to tap into that. So we said, what's that an example of? When you have 1.2 million a year, chunking up, what will that give you that you don't have now? Right? We had to chunk up about 6 times to get to the real source of motivation. And it came like that. After a point of silence, after 2 points of silence, actually, and we got to it, she broke into tears. Her income tripled like that. Now, that's not a guarantee, right? I always say that because you want to tap into your own resources to make the kind of money Nicole Cooper makes. You're going to need to go all in and then go all in with your energy, right? And you need to tap into your own motivation to do that and your own creative resources. So that's an example of chunking. So how do you set goals? Well, first, just focus on something you want. Like, I want to buy a $700 pen, or I want a $40,000 watch, or I want to be able to buy expensive rings, or I want to be able to speak in front of events with 5,000 people, or have a video that gets hundreds of comments on it. And you have a goal, and you say, when I have that, what will that give me that I don't have now? Then you chunk up to the most abstract place you can get, push past the silence, and allow your unconscious to give you the answer to why you're really there. And we'll help you with that, by the way, at our next event in Denver. And then you chunk back down all the way to specifically what's next. And here's what I'm going to tell you. Any area of your life that you're not that specific in will be like this. It'll go whichever way that it wants. And any area of your life that you're that specific in, that you decide to be specific in, that you decide to be clear in, right, is going to have your unconscious resources taking control. It'll be like you're guided. It'll be like I was when I got on the internet. I got on the internet. And I sat down and I decided consciously, I'm going to make it happen. And I had to learn some things. The beautiful thing is we've all learned something. You've learned amazing things in your life. All of us have learned to walk. First time I learned to walk, I was laying in bed like this and I could only move my hands and my legs. I don't know if you've ever been in that situation in your life where you couldn't move. Everything at one point in your life that you're good at was once extremely difficult and complex. Well, I was like this with my arms and legs all over the place. And then one day I had the strength to just barely push myself up on 4 limbs and collapse back onto my stomach. And then one day, I managed to push myself up and stay up. And then before I knew it, I was crawling like a madman all over the house. Ask my mom. And then, months later, I was sprinting, running, jumping on bicycles, leaping, not even remembering how difficult it used to be to walk. Because I was clear on wanting to walk. See, kids are great at being clear. It's us adults that need sometimes a slap in the face. Sometimes parents spank their children. I think the children sometimes should spank the parents back because the parents are the ones that are not clear. What do you want and why? And chunk up on that and then get clear in any area of your life that you do that with and decide to learn something and tap into the resources that you do have to learn because you can learn new things in any area of your life. That is where you're going to succeed. Decide to blog every day. Then you need to know why. Then you need to chunk back down to what's next, which may be writing a blog post now. And maybe you need to buy the blogging system first, right? Does that make sense? So the message of the day is get clear. For a further review of how to set well-formed outcomes, go through Module 1 in the 15K formula. That product will change your life. And those of you who just made a new decision to try something new, to try something different, to decide to succeed, I want you to write your thoughts in the comments below this video. And I'm going to see you guys in Denver. Looking forward to it. And who knows when my next video will be. You, my friend, are a friggin' badass. That's awesome. Appreciate you.